AITA for pressing charges against my in-laws, even if it costs me my marriage? I am 29 years old, and I do not think I am wrong, even though everyone claims otherwise. My wife, Allison, 28, and I have been together for 8 years, but married for only 4. We started as friends in the same study group, and then started dating toward the end of our college years. After graduation, I did not have many opportunities in my hometown. So, I moved to the city where Allison had already found a job. This meant I did not know anyone besides her. I had no trouble finding work, and we rented a small duplex in a central neighborhood. Allison gradually introduced me to her family. Her mother, Susan, runs the family like a general. Susan's husband died in a car accident when Allison was 16, leaving her a substantial settlement and life insurance. She invested this money wisely, and today owns 3 rental properties in addition to her own house. Susan has 2 sons besides Allison: Jason, 31, a mechanic and owner of his own auto repair shop, and Nathan, 25, who just finished business school and helps Susan manage the properties. The whole family revolves around her. Every major decision goes through her first. She paid for Jason's auto shop, Nathan's education, and Allison's student loans. When Jason got married 3 years ago, Susan funded half of the wedding. When Nathan wanted a car, she co-signed the loan and paid the down payment. Allison always spoke highly of her family, especially her mother. She called her at least 3 times a week, sometimes every day. Susan gave her opinion on everything: what food to buy, what movies to watch. My own family lives on the other side of the country, and we barely speak once a month. The problem started when Allison and I got engaged. Susan immediately took control of the wedding preparations. She booked the venue without consulting us, and even picked the menu. When I suggested that we might like to have a say in our own wedding, Allison told me that her mother had experience in event planning and that we should trust her. I let it go because Allison seemed happy. The wedding was beautiful, but I felt like it was Susan's, not ours. Our guest list of 50 jumped to 120, but since she was paying for everything, it was hard to complain. After the wedding, Susan's meddling intensified. She started dropping by our place unannounced, especially on weekends. Since she had the keys, having paid the security deposit, she let herself in as she pleased. I would come home from work to find her reorganizing the kitchen cabinets or doing the laundry. When I told Allison that her mother was crossing the line, she replied that Susan was only helping us and that I should be grateful. 3 months ago, things got worse. Allison and I had been trying to have a baby for a year. We had not told anyone, but Susan found out somehow. She started leaving pregnancy books around and saying we should turn the guest room into a nursery. When Allison finally admitted that she was not pregnant yet, Susan suggested we see a fertility specialist she knew, even offering to pay for the consultation. I told Allison that this was too much, that her mother needed to stop interfering in such personal aspects of our marriage. Allison got defensive and accused me of being ungrateful for everything Susan had done. I replied that accepting help was not the same as accepting control. The atmosphere was tense for weeks. We barely spoke, except for practical things like our work schedules or chores. I started working overtime to avoid being home when Susan came over. Allison noticed and accused me of intentionally avoiding her family. The situation blew up 2 weeks ago at Jason's wedding anniversary party. Allison had been planning to go for months, and I was supposed to go with her. The party was held at Susan's house, which has a large backyard perfect for this kind of gathering. Most of Allison's extended family was expected to be there. I almost did not go. I was exhausted from work. Allison told me it would look bad to miss such an important family event, especially since Susan often asked where I had been. The party started at 3 in the afternoon. I arrived with Allison around 4 in the afternoon after a morning of work. I was still tired and not really in the mood to socialize. Susan immediately hugged Allison, then looked at me and commented that I looked tired and should have freshened up before coming. I spent most of the time sitting at a picnic table with Allison, trying to chat with her cousins and their spouses. Susan kept walking by making remarks. She mentioned that the duplex we rented needed new gutters and that I should take care of it quickly. She asked Allison if she was eating enough vegetables because I looked pale. She even wondered aloud why I did not talk more with the other men. Around 6 in the evening, the pastor from Susan's church arrived with his wife. Susan immediately called Allison over to talk to them about volunteer opportunities at the church. Allison had started going to her mother's church more and more often, something we had never discussed. I stayed at the table checking my phone to avoid conversations. That is when Jason and Nathan came over to me. Jason sat across from me and said we needed to have a man-to-man talk. Nathan stood behind him with his arms crossed. Jason explained that the family was worried about how I was treating Susan and Allison. He added that I was ungrateful for everything Susan had done and that I was making Allison miserable by complaining about their interference. I replied that this was between Allison and me and that he had no business meddling in our marriage. Nathan said that family business involved everyone, especially when it affected Susan. Jason then added that I needed to start showing respect and gratitude, otherwise there would be consequences. I stood up, saying I would not be threatened. That is when Jason pushed me backward. I stumbled, but did not fall. Nathan stepped up and pushed me harder. I fell onto the grass. A brief physical altercation followed as they struck me before other guests pulled them off. I had a split lip, a torn shirt, and my back was covered in grass stains and bruises. Everyone was yelling. Someone called for Susan. Allison ran over, but instead of asking if I was okay, she questioned her brothers. Susan arrived and demanded to know why there was a fight at her party. Jason said I had been disrespectful and provoked the incident. Nathan backed him up and added that I had pushed him first. I tried to explain what really happened, but Susan cut me off, saying she had had enough of my attitude. Allison was crying and asking everyone to calm down. Susan ordered me to leave before I caused any more trouble. Allison said she would take me home, but Susan insisted she stay since she had been looking forward to this evening for weeks. I left alone, drove to the duplex, and just sat there trying to process what had just happened. My face was swollen, my ribs hurt, and I had scratches on my arms. I took pictures of my injuries with my phone and then called the police to report the assault. 2 officers came to the house and took my statement. They then went to Susan's house and arrested Jason and Nathan. Allison came home around 10 at night, furious that I had called the police. She said I had provoked my brothers-in-law by being disrespectful during a family gathering. According to her, Jason and Nathan were just defending their mother and sister. Jason and Nathan were released on bail the next morning. They are charged with assault, with a hearing scheduled for next month. Susan hired a lawyer for both of them and has been harassing Allison with calls to convince her to make me drop the charges. Allison has been living at her mother's house for a week. She just comes by to grab some things and check the mail, but refuses any real conversation. Yesterday, she finally agreed to sit down to ask me to drop the charges against her brothers, saying it was tearing the family apart and causing Susan a lot of stress and expense. I replied that I would not drop anything. Her brothers assaulted me. It is as simple as that. If they had wanted to discuss my attitude, they could have used words instead of physical force. Allison said they made a mistake, but that they did not deserve to have a criminal record. Allison gave me an ultimatum yesterday. If I did not drop the charges by Friday, she would file for divorce. She said she could not be married to someone who wanted to destroy her family over a simple difference of opinion. She added that Susan was considering selling the duplex we rent because she could no longer stand the idea of me living so close. Allison claims her brothers are truly sorry and will never do it again. She also says Susan has learned her lesson and will give us space in the future. But I fail to see how dropping criminal charges would change the family dynamics that led to all of this. I love Allison, but I feel like I am being asked to choose between my dignity and my marriage. Her family has clearly shown that they do not consider me one of their own, and now they are using physical force to make me understand that. I do not believe I am wrong to prefer my safety over a marriage with someone who defends her brothers after they assaulted me. Brothers who came at me 2 against 1. That says a lot about them. Update 1. Here is what has happened since my original post. I did not drop the charges. Allison filed for divorce the following Monday, as she promised. She took all her belongings from the duplex while I was at work, leaving me a note saying she would contact me through her lawyer. I will not say I am happy, but if this is how it has to end, so be it. Susan did indeed sell the duplex. She gave me a 30-day notice to vacate, the legal minimum in our state. I found a studio apartment across town and moved last weekend. Jason and Nathan's hearing took place last Thursday. I went, even though Allison's family showed up in droves, including several relatives I had never met. The prosecutor noted that the two brothers had no prior criminal record. The defense argued that it was a family dispute that escalated rather than a criminal assault. Both pleaded guilty to simple assault charges and were sentenced to community service, anger management classes, and ordered to pay me restitution for my medical bills. No jail time, which is what I expected given their clean records and family support. The judge also issued restraining orders prohibiting them from contacting me for 1 year. Allison was in the courtroom with Susan and about a dozen family members. She did not look at me once. After the sentencing, I saw her talking to a prosecutor in the hallway. I do not know about what, but she looked upset. The divorce proceedings are going smoothly. No children, no joint property, just some furniture and wedding gifts. Allison does not want anything from the duplex since Susan bought most of the furniture. I am keeping my truck and my tools. She is keeping her car and personal belongings. We are splitting our small savings account and closing the joint account. What shocked me the most was learning what Allison's family had been saying about me behind my back for months. During mediation, Allison's lawyer mentioned that Susan kept a journal where she recorded examples of my supposedly disrespectful behavior since last Christmas. She logged every time I declined a family invitation, every remark I made about their interference, and every argument Allison and I had about her family. According to this journal, I was a freeloader, an ingrate isolating Allison from her loving family. Susan noted the dates and times I came home late from work, interpreting that as a form of avoidance, and recorded the times I did not immediately thank her for a gift or favor, viewing those as signs of bad character. Apparently, Allison also contributed to this journal, telling her mother about private conversations we had regarding boundaries and our independence. Discussions I thought were strictly between husband and wife were actually being relayed to Susan for analysis and judgment. The journal was brought up because Susan wanted to use it to claim I had been emotionally abusive. The mediator quickly dismissed this argument. Disagreeing with your in-laws or wanting privacy does not constitute abuse. But it showed me just how much Allison's family had rewritten our history. I also learned that Susan had pushed Allison to get pregnant as soon as possible after our wedding, convinced that a little child would make me more attached to the family and less inclined to cause trouble. When we did not have a child right away, Susan started researching fertility treatments and making appointments without telling us. The pregnancy books and medical referrals were not just a sign of enthusiasm. Allison admitted during mediation that she had been taking prenatal vitamins for months on Susan's advice, even though we were not actively trying at that time. This revelation upset me more than almost anything else. Allison and Susan were making plans about our future children without even including me, planning medical consultations I had never heard of. Susan had even started looking at baby furniture and asking Allison what theme she wanted for the nursery. Another thing revealed was Jason and Nathan's version of the fight at the anniversary party. They claimed I had been rude and cold to several family members all day, that several people had complained to Susan because I was making them uncomfortable. They said they came over to talk to me amicably to smooth things over, that I immediately became aggressive, swore, threatened to leave early just to upset Allison, and that I threw the first punch when Jason tapped my shoulder to calm me down. None of this matches reality, but apparently that is the version Allison's family believes. Even after pleading guilty, Jason and Nathan maintained they had been provoked. Allison did not contradict their story during mediation. When asked what she saw, she replied that she was talking to the pastor and did not see the beginning. That when she looked up, she simply saw the three of us on the ground and did not know who started it. But I know Allison saw at least part of it because she ran over as soon as people started yelling. The fact that she claimed not to know who started it felt like one more betrayal, especially after she had spent weeks begging me to drop the charges. The divorce should be finalized within 1 month. Allison and I have had no direct contact since she left. All communication now goes through the lawyers, which is strange after 8 years together, but much less stressful than our conversations, which always ended up turning into arguments about her family. I am working more. I am taking odd jobs on weekends to stay busy and save up for a better apartment. My supervisor offered me a promotion, more responsibility, but also better pay and better benefits. I am seriously considering it now that I have no family constraints. The hardest part is the loneliness. Allison was my main social connection here, and family events made up the majority of my social life outside of work. Now I realize how much I had pushed my own friendships and interests aside. I joined an amateur softball league and started hanging out at the local bar that sponsors the team. It helps me meet people who know nothing about my marriage or my divorce. My coworkers invite me to barbecues and games that I used to turn down because Allison and I had family obligations. I do not regret refusing to drop the charges, even if it cost me my marriage. Allison chose to prioritize her family's comfort over supporting her husband after he was assaulted. I chose not to be intimidated and to demand respect. The restraining orders expire in 11 months. Until then, I hope I do not have to worry about running into them around town. Allison can keep her suffocating family dynamics. As for me, I am going to build a life where I am treated with a minimum of respect. Update 2. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks ago, and I thought that would be the end of any ties to Allison's family. But that family is like a cancer. It always comes back. Let us start with the good news. I accepted the promotion. The softball team is a great way to meet new people, and I started dating someone I met through friends on the team. Her name is Amanda. She is a nurse at the local hospital. We have gone out a few times, and she knows I recently got divorced, but I have not told her all the details about Allison's family. My new apartment is working out great. It is more expensive than the duplex, but with the promotion, I can afford it, and I like having a place that is entirely mine. No one but me has the keys. Amanda has already spent a few weekends here, but I have not given her a spare key yet. Now on to the complicated part. 3 weeks ago, I ran into Nathan at a gas station near my work. The first time I had seen a member of Allison's family since court. He was filling up at the next pump, and we recognized each other at the same time. I still have a restraining order against him, but as long as neither of us did anything suspicious, one could simply finish and leave. What I did not expect, he walked over and asked if we could talk. He told me he had wanted to reach out to me for a while, but did not know if it would violate the order. I replied that a brief conversation in public would not be an issue as long as he did not threaten me or follow me. Nathan apologized for what happened at the anniversary party. He said he and Jason had been drinking more than usual and that he lost his temper thinking I was disrespecting Susan. He admitted that it never should have come to blows and that he truly regretted that things escalated. What surprised me was that he confided having his own issues with Susan. She was trying to control his relationship with his girlfriend Rachel exactly like she controlled Allison's and mine. Susan did not approve of Rachel because she did not go to church regularly. She made remarks about her appearance, her job as a waitress, and her education level. She was pressuring Nathan to leave her and find someone more suitable among her church connections. When Nathan refused, Susan threatened to stop helping him pay for his car and his rent. The conversation lasted about 10 minutes, and Nathan seemed sincere. He said he realized now how much Susan pressured everyone to meet her expectations. He asked me if I thought Allison would be happier if she could get away from her mother's influence. I replied that it was up to Allison to decide and that it was no longer my problem. Nathan nodded, said he understood, and wished me luck. 2 weeks later, I received a call at work. The person on the phone introduced herself as Rachel, Nathan's girlfriend. She told me Nathan had told her about our chat at the gas station and that she wanted to ask me a few questions about my experience with Susan and the rest of the family. Rachel explained that she and Nathan had been together for almost 2 years, but she never felt accepted. Susan made her feel unwelcome at family gatherings. Jason and his wife Michelle were politely distant, following Susan's lead and treating Rachel like an outsider. The reason for her call, Nathan had proposed to her the previous weekend, and Susan had immediately tried to talk him out of it. She had told Nathan he was too young to get married and needed to focus on his career first, that Rachel was not ready for marriage and needed to improve herself before joining the family. Rachel asked me if Susan had tried to control my relationship with Allison before our wedding. I told her how Susan had taken total control of our wedding and interfered in all our personal decisions. Rachel told me she was experiencing the same thing. Susan gave her unsolicited advice on her work schedule, her hair, the way she dressed. She asked me if I thought Susan would eventually accept her or if the family relationships would always stay this complicated. I answered her honestly. Susan seemed to view anyone dating her children as a rival, a threat to her influence. She expected Allison to prioritize family opinions over her husband's. and the same pattern would likely repeat in Nathan's marriage. Rachel thanked me for my honesty and told me she planned to have a serious conversation with Nathan about setting boundaries. She added that Nathan was starting to realize his mother's behavior, but was afraid of being cut off financially and emotionally if he confronted her. Last week, I learned at work that Allison had been asking about me. A coworker told me that his wife, who worked at Allison's old job, had been contacted by her. I paid no attention to it. If Allison needed to talk to me, she could call or go through her lawyer. I was not interested in reopening communication just because she felt she had something to tell me. But yesterday morning, Allison showed up at my apartment. She said she needed to explain a few things that had happened after the divorce. She confided that she had moved back in with Susan, but that living together had become impossible. Susan monitored her calls, questioned her about her outings, and made decisions about her career and social life without consulting her. The breaking point came when Allison started dating a coworker named Brian. Susan immediately launched a full-scale investigation. She called his former employers and questioned his neighbors about his family. When Allison found out about this, she confronted her mother. Susan replied that she was protecting her from another mistake. That just like her marriage to me, Allison had poor judgment regarding men and needed guidance. Susan had already decided that Brian was not a good match because he was divorced and had a child. Allison told me she finally understood what I had been trying to show her about her mother's controlling behavior. She apologized for not supporting me when her brothers got into the physical altercation with me. She admitted she knew Jason and Nathan had started the fight, but had been too scared to contradict the family story. She also revealed that Susan had been planning to sabotage our marriage for months before the anniversary party. I listened to Allison's apologies, but I told her that it changed nothing. The divorce was final. I was seeing someone else, and I had no desire to replay the same arguments. Allison said she understood, but just wanted to tell me she was sorry for not standing up for me when it mattered. She has moved out of Susan's house and now rents a small apartment closer to her work. She no longer speaks to Susan and has little contact with Jason. Nathan, on the other hand, is more understanding because he is going through the same issues, but the family is now irreparably broken. Amanda knows my ex-wife came over to apologize. I had no intention of hiding it from her. That apology gave me a sense of closure and confirmed that I made the right decision by not dropping my assault charge. If I had done it and stayed married, Susan would have learned that physical force was an effective way to get what she wanted. Nathan and Rachel officially got engaged last month. Rumor has it Susan is still trying to break them up. Jason and his wife have their own problems due to Susan's meddling. Allison is finally learning to live independently for the first time in her life. As for me, I am focusing on my career, my new relationship, and my friendships. The restraining orders expire in 8 months, but I doubt I will have any contact with them after that. Update 3. The restraining orders expired last month. I have had no contact with the two brothers since. Nathan and Rachel got married in a small ceremony 6 weeks ago. From what I have heard, Susan did not attend the wedding and has not spoken to him since he refused to call off the engagement. Rachel reached out to me about 2 months ago to thank me for my honesty. She told me my remarks had helped them recognize Susan's manipulations. Apparently, Nathan told his mother he no longer wanted her financial help if it came with strings attached, and that he would no longer tolerate interference in his marriage. Susan reacted by cutting him off completely. No more car payments. She told him to find another place to live and wrote him out of her will. Nathan and Rachel moved into an apartment they can afford on their combined incomes. Nathan is working more to make up for the loss of financial support. Jason and his wife Michelle are also having problems with Susan. Michelle is pregnant with their second child, and Susan is trying to control decisions about medical care, childcare, and even the baby's name. Michelle finally told Jason he had to choose between his mother's approval and his wife's sanity. Jason has tried setting boundaries, but he is not as firm as Nathan. Susan alternates between moments where she seems to respect the boundaries and moments where she tests them. She drops by unannounced or makes decisions without consulting Jason and Michelle. Their relationship is strained but not as broken as the one between Nathan and Susan. Allison has been completely cut off from Susan since moving out and seriously dating Brian. Susan refuses to acknowledge the relationship and tells other family members that Allison is going through a rebellious phase that will end when she comes to her senses. What is interesting is Susan's reaction to losing control over her 3 children. According to a work contact, she tells her church friends that her children have turned against her because of manipulative partners seeking to isolate them from their loving family. The latest development happened 2 weeks ago. I was in a hardware store buying supplies when I ran into Jason. The first time I had seen him since court over a year ago. He approached cautiously and asked if he could talk to me for a few minutes. He apologized for the assault and said he had thought about it often over the past year. He explained that the assault charges and community service had been a wake-up call, a realization of how his mother's influence had pushed him to act against his own judgment. He told me he had never been in a fight as an adult before that day and was ashamed to have let Susan manipulate him to the point of getting into a physical altercation with his sister's husband. The conversation lasted about 15 minutes, and he seemed genuinely remorseful. He asked if I could ever forgive him and Nathan. I replied that I appreciated his apology, but forgiveness would take time, and I was not interested in rebuilding any kind of bond with Allison's family. Jason said he understood, that he was not looking for friendship, only acknowledgement of the fact that he now knew what they did was wrong. He also confided that he and Michelle were planning to move out of state next year after the birth of their second child. They need distance to build their own family without Susan's constant interference and manipulation. Michelle had given him an ultimatum similar to the one Allison had given me back then, except Michelle wanted him to choose her over his mother, not for him to drop criminal charges. Some people have asked if I feel vindicated after everything that happened. In reality, I do not think about it often. I made the decision that felt right to me at the time, and I am satisfied with how my life has turned out since. Refusing to drop the assault charges had nothing to do with getting revenge on Jason and Nathan. It was a way of refusing to let physical force dictate my actions. Amanda and I are focused on building our life together. Our relationship has gotten serious. We have talked about having kids a few years into marriage, and we already agree on how we will handle family relationships and grandparent involvement. I still play softball in the same recreational league, and I have built strong friendships through work and social activities. We have a good group of couple friends that we see regularly. Update 4. Since some have asked for news about my ex-mother-in-law's children, here it is. First, Jason. From what I have heard, he has already moved out of state with Michelle and their 2 children. I do not think he has any contact with Susan anymore. Part of the move was precisely to get away and escape her toxic web of control. I could be wrong, but I believe Jason did not even let Susan see his first child when it was born. And frankly, good for him. That child does not need to know a grandmother like that. As for Nathan, he still lives in town. We exchanged a few words. He has also cut ties with his mother, and it has allowed him to have a happy marriage. No need to say more. If 2 of your children are living much better lives, are happier, and have balanced relationships with their spouses far away from you, then the problem was always you. Which brings us to Allison, who never completely broke away from her mother. She got engaged to a coworker, but she ruined everything because of her. She went back to a close relationship with Susan, and I do not need anyone to explain to me what that entails. I lived through it. But this new guy was lucky enough to escape in time. As for Susan, I heard that one of her tenants sued her because the house was not up to certain county codes, and after an accident, they decided to seek damages. I do not know how much she lost, but she had to sell 2, maybe 3 of her properties. I do not know if she ended up selling the duplex because she was fed up with it or because of a lawsuit. Either way, she only has 1 rental property left. She also had to sell the house she lived in because her income had dropped significantly after losing her rentals. I have not seen her new house, but I know there are new occupants in the old one. As for me, Amanda and I are planning to get married this summer. Our relationship has been going on for over 2 years now, and things are going even better than I could have imagined. I met my future mother-in-law, and it is like meeting the kind-hearted version of my ex-mother-in-law. Everything the other one was not, and much more. She even baked me cupcakes that became my favorite without asking anything in return. She never told Amanda she could do better. She never meddled in our business, and she has no complaints about our wedding. She just wants to know when and where so she can be ready. Today, I finally feel like a member of a real family. That is the best way to sum up my life and the lives of the other people who started this story. If I learn anything else, I will probably do another update, but I am not following this situation closely, and it might be a while before I feel like writing again, only if something happens. Otherwise, I say goodbye to you as if this were the last time we crossed paths. Comment. Hey everyone, I just wanted to speak from the heart for a moment after sharing this story with you. Protecting your self-respect is something worth fighting for, even when it costs you a lot. Setting firm boundaries with family or anyone else is not about being difficult. It's about protecting your peace. Choosing yourself doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you responsible for your own well-being. True healing starts once you stop trying to keep the peace at the expense of your own dignity. Be kind to yourself through the process because you deserve that gentleness. I hope this encourages you to look at your own relationships and ask whether they truly support the person you are. You have every right to want a life that feels safe and respectful. Remember that real love never asks you to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Thanks for watching, and I hope this leaves you feeling a little more empowered to choose what's best for you. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.